The wait is finally over, so let's meet this new Emperor of Sand with the new release from Mastodon.
Mastodon!
Pterodactyl!
Triceratops!
Saber-tooth tiger!
Tyrannosaurus!
I will never not do that joke whenever I am reviewing a Mastodon album, so let's just dive into it. The Emperor of Sand by Mastodon. So Mastodon is a progressive sludge metal type of band. I really got into their stuff when I heard Crack the Sky. Crack the Sky, up until this point, has been my favorite of all their releases. I do enjoy Leviathan. We find ourselves now on the 7th studio release from this band since 2001, 2002. What I do enjoy about Mastodon is each of their albums are just completely unique from the ones that they had done prior. When you listen to Mastodon, you still know the style and you still know that it is Mastodon. These guys capture what it means to be progressive in that each album progresses the music forward in some way, and I have to give my hats off. Now, sometimes this doesn't always work. I mean, for many, The Hunter as well as Once More Around the Sun did take a step back in that, and I will agree the overall enjoyment that I had for those two albums didn't really meet the expectation of, say, the Leviathan or Crack the Sky. When I heard that Emperor of Sand was coming out, it was going to be a full-on concept album such as Leviathan or Crack the Sky, and I feel like Mastodon plays very well in a concept album format. I feel like it structures the songs a little bit more, and the interplay from song to song is a lot stronger with all the characters, and that is definitely found on Emperor of Sand. And I want to preface this album review right off the gates that I've been listening to this album for the entire weekend, like right from when it released on Friday up until today. I have to say, honestly, this is now my favorite album from Mastodon. I really hope that it stands the test of time, because a lot of albums that I really enjoy start to peter off a little bit. And so I wanted to hold back before I gave my initial review, because I didn't want to just come out of the gates praising this thing without it having a little bit of time to sink in, because with all of Mastodon's albums, it is very dense. The style here is definitely a lot more trippy. They're using a lot more of a synthesized sounds within the backgrounds. They've got a lot more effects on their guitars now. They're using a lot of outside sounds and outside noises to create a lot of their sounds on here. It's not just a straight up chugging guitar or straight up growly vocals or yelly vocals. I mean, there's even a point on Clandesty, the 8th track on this album, where it's got that kind of vocalizations that you would hear on the beginning track of ELO's Time. It's got like that computerized vocals on there, and when I was hearing this, especially with the build-up from that track, it just provided such a really great tangible landscape, and that is one thing that I really like about this album. As I said at the beginning, this is a concept album, so the whole concept is this wasteland of like a desert dealing with death, and the whole, I guess, inspiration for this album is two of the band members on here, their mothers were going through cancer. I mean, every band member had been touched by death between the last album of Once More Around the Sun and this one. So a lot of the songs came out of that grieving process. Kind of similar to how the suicide of one of the sisters of the band helped get through Crack of the Sky. And so that place, that grievingness is definitely present on this. All the songs deal with death in some way. And another thing that I just really enjoy about this album, especially with a lot of other Mastodon albums, is the lyrics that are presented on here. They're very dense as well. And I know that Mastodon is one of those bands that is music first and lyrics and vocals second. For the most part, I agree with that. Like, they are definitely the music first, and then we've got the lyrics as kind of an afterthought for a lot of their other albums. But within a concept album, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. The two kind of work hand in hand. The one song that really highlights this is Words to the Wise, the 6th track on this album. It starts off with, I jumped into a wishing well, or I threw some sand or something into the wishing well. And then within the chorus of this track, we have, I fell into a pit of lies. And so we've got this wishing well and this pit of lies. And the two symbols on this track kind of work hand in hand, right? Like, you have the wishing well where you're coming with a desire and you're hoping to change something within this whole landscape. Like, I came into a wishing well, so they're wishing for something, but then they fell into a pit of lies. Like, that desire was just this big lie all along. Now, into the actual music itself, there are some fantastic standout tracks on this. The whole album overall is just fantastic, and I love each and every song on this, which is a very rare thing for an album like this, but there are some that rise a little bit more than the others, and that doesn't belittle those that are maybe not as amazing as those other ones, but it does show how great those other songs are. The one that comes up for me right away is Roots Remain. And what I really, really like about the song, much like I was talking about Clandestiny, is near the midpoint, the song slows down and lets you breathe. And that was something that Mastodon never really let happen with a lot of their songs. Like, they were just so relentless that the transitions were from like one heavy riff to another heavy riff to another heavy riff, and all those heavy riffs were very energetic and very just go, 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 go. So this album actually kind of took a little bit of a page from Crack the Sky, where they were able to kind of bring the song to not a stop, but just a slow down so that we can really appreciate the landscape that the song is developing. And so the first song that really does this very well is, as I said, Roots Remain. And that's the first time that I really had to take a step back and be like, whoa, I'm dealing with something really amazing on this album. The song really slows down and we get an amazing chord riff as well as everything else. And what really hit me is the chiming of some tubular bells. That had not been heard, at least in my recollection, from this type of metal. And just what it did to the landscape, it burst this big beacon of light throughout the whole landscape. And so when we come into the vocals that kind of usher us through this particular landscape, it's the kind of that whoa, whoa, whoa moment that the backup singers are saying on this, and just the passion that were felt on this. It's so tangible, and I know I use that a lot, but it is. The landscape that they're in at this time is just so beautiful, and it's those backup vocals with the tubular bells within this landscape that I was gushing. And I already mentioned about Clandestiny and how it did that same thing where it slowed down near the midpoint, and just that buildup that we had into that really strange vocals near that midpoint and then just kind of let us through, that was particularly enjoyable. And the one thing that I did notice near the beginning of this album, it started off very well with the Sultan's Curse, and we already heard Show Yourself, which is kind of the oddball track on here. It's very accessible. It does kind of a good thing of keeping you on your toes for not knowing what to expect throughout the rest of the album. The next couple of tracks of Precious Stones and Steam Breather. Steam Breather actually feels like it was very well lifted out of a Once More Around the Sun. Like, it sounds very similar to, say, the Mother Lode from that. But not so close that it's a carbon copy. Just, I feel like this song was written very shortly after the release of Once More Around the Sun, whereas a lot of these other tracks were kind of written in that moment of like that group thought of the overall concept. And something that I really appreciate about these songs, as I kind of hinted, but will take a little bit more opportunity to talk about, the track Andromeda does a really good thing of keeping you on your toes and not really knowing where the song's going to go. And the fact that it starts off very, very heavy, but then goes through a lot of these very mellow aspects as well. And I really enjoy that wandering. As I had mentioned, a lot of the other tracks from Mastodon, from say like the Leviathan or Blood Mountain, they're very hunkered down into that one landscape and they don't really move around too much. Within Andromeda, it's moving constantly, and that is definitely found on the last track of Dragwire God. Now this is the crowning jewel of the album. It's the longest track, almost touching 8 minutes, and what it does is just something so, so beautiful. It's even one of the more mellow tracks that the band has done. It goes through 3 or 4 different realized landscapes before it really hunkers down into the end point. What I love is the transitions between each of these landscapes. None of them feel forced. It all feels very organic. Coming into the end of this track, this is my only criticism of the overall album, is that when the band gets into such an amazing riff, instead of exploring it and really playing around with the landscape, they cut it short. And I think this might be intentional. The overall concept of this album is one of death, and I think that is mirrored on a lot of these solos where they're cut short before they can really feel their full potential. Now I know that's something of a very strange statement with so many of these riffs being so well realized and so well articulated within their playing styles, but within especially Dragwire God and a few other of the really great ending guitar riffs, it felt like it was cut short. Like, I wish this was pushed into maybe a 10-minute mark or a little bit longer to really develop that play out, to really have just an amazing finalized word. It is still the strongest ending to a Mastodon album I've heard since Leviathan. So overall, if you can't tell by now, I love this album. There are a couple moments on this album that I don't particularly connect with. There are a few songs near the start that don't grab me right away, which might just be a time thing. Show Yourself and Precious Stones don't really do a whole lot for me, but I'm hoping as the year progresses and even later years come about, I'll feel a little bit more connected on those. So overall, I have to give this guy a final rating of I love this album with my whole heart. I hope as it matures and as I grow to enjoy it, it will most likely receive that full-on stamp of masterpiece. But I'm always hesitant to give a new release the stamp of a masterpiece. This one took a little bit of time for me to really get into, and I hope in later years I can give it that full stamp, because I have a feeling it's going to. I'm just not going to give it that right out of the get-go, because it needs to kind of earn that as well. So what did you guys think? What did you guys think of Emperor of Sand of Mastodon? How do you like the new sound? Do you love it? Do you hate it? I know a lot of like purebred Mastodon fans from the Remission and Leviathan and Blood Mountain era maybe won't connect with it because it is so far removed from that original standpoint. But I would like to hear what you guys think of it. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. And just a reminder, I'm fastly approaching that 1,000th subscriber on my channel, and once I get there, I have 2 videos planned. One that's pretty much finished, and I'm just waiting to get to that point before I release it. That's a surprise. That's more of a thank you for all my viewers out there. The other one, I'm going to be talking about my entire discography behind me in my vinyl collection. I'm going to go cubby by cubby, so that'll come in, say, a 4 or 5, I think even 6-part series. So get ready for those. And so that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching as always. You guys are definitely the best. And that's about it for me. All right, notes out.